podcast.
Yeah, the music, interviews, the culture.
Sweet. Let's get into it.
And then don't forget all the lovely things we plan to do today.
Sweet podcast.
All right. Groove Sweet Podcast. What's happening, y'all? It's Mr. LP again. The MPN Network, all that great stuff. Thank you so much for hitting play on this one and listening to the other ones. If you haven't listened to the other ones, go to C as in Charles for challenge.com. Listen to my stuff as well as the other content creators of colors, their contents. I've been listening to some stuff here and there, and it's been very, very, very dope, man. I've been enjoying it. I've been challenged for sure because it's the challenge. I got like a hiccup a couple of days ago, but nevertheless, we still rocking and rolling. So, listen, I told y'all again, I'm telling y'all again that I was bringing some of my content creator color friends with me on these episodes to talk about this music. And this brother right here is highly educational when it comes to the music. And even when I say educational, even on the academia tip, my guys doing the mentoring action, really involved in that, man. At a later date, I really want to pick his brain on that because that's just the way I like to see life. And real quick, I'm gonna read this section. I did my digging on you, Krate. But one thing that stood out to me is said, my mission is quite simply to improve the qualities of life. I use music as a vehicle for that mission, intentionally through the prisms of hip hop culture. Listen.
Indeed. Yes, sir.
That's heavy. That's heavy body. That's the hip hop that I'm talking about. Like, it was funny as I was on a call earlier for like entrepreneur stuff for NABJ. And the owner of allhiphop.com was on there talking to us about like his business and his journey and that type of stuff. And I wanted to ask him, like, I wanted to like reference that. I feel like I'm the only person in this space sometimes that want to do that stuff. So when I did my research a couple of days ago, but it reminded me when I was setting up for this, I'm like, man, it's brothers out here that's doing this, you know what I'm saying? And you're definitely one of those brothers that are like really into the hip hop and really want to do it outside of just, the stereotypical stuff at, DJing. Like, you produce, you're working on a documentary, and again, the mentoring. So I think that's a whole evolution. That's a whole like package of like what hip hop culture stands for when I look at it and I think about it. And have this conversation with you now is like the dopest thing ever. So without further ado, my people, DJ Krate Digga.
What up? What's going on, good brother? Good to see you. So first of all, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I think we've both been looking forward to this conversation, which we know is going to fall into other conversations.
Absolutely.
Since we started having conversations, and I can't even say exactly when we first met, but I know it was likely last October, November-ish. I think it was November-ish because I think y'all had finished the previous challenge. But So to that piece, yeah, I appreciate the kudos. And, one thing I tell people is, when you're in a certain culture, whatever that culture space is, like if you love it, you're going to find all these different ways to enact with it, to be supportive of it, to be critical of it sometimes, to do what you can to protect it, do what you can to help it grow. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like for me, I know I don't look it. And those of you who are just listening, you have to just imagine what I look like. People who are watching, you can see what I look like. And I know I don't look my age. I know. But I'm 44. I was born in 78. So like being a teenager in the late 80s, early 90s, like hip hop was my language. That's the language I spoke. That's the language of my youth. That is the culture in which I was involved in. Now, I was involved in different layers in different ways. I wasn't at the park freestyling or breakdancing, but not being active directly in those tenets of hip hop didn't mean that I wasn't engaged in hip hop. And it doesn't, and those of you who know my history or understand different things about me, understand how I was involved in hip hop and how hip hop influenced and developed me through that time frame. So I say all that to say, like, when it comes to all the things that I do, it's really just about, you know, supporting and being engaged in this culture space that I love, that's given me, you know, great opportunities to feed my family, travel the world, and all those other things. But at the same time, understanding that when we talk about hip hop as a genre versus hip hop as a culture, there's a lot of different conversations within that. And then even within the conversation about hip hop culture itself, you know, we have a whole lot of different layers, good, bad, and no judgment, that needs to be dissected, because once again, this isn't, you know, just a thing. It's a way of life for a lot of people. So, you know, I just do my part to uplift the culture and you know, try to not be the weakest link.
Man, listen, beautiful words, man. Like, you know, that made me smile, man. Like, this is one of the things that gets me amped. You know what I'm saying? I feel the same way too when it comes to hip hop. I'm like, you know, I joke a lot and I say I feel like hip hop. I owe hip hop. Like, I'm in debt with hip hop. So I'm like, I'm forever in debt with it. I'm like, well, I just want to keep adding to it and be able to help in certain ways. You know, be able to stand in the line of whatever fire, or even be behind a brethren that's in front of me that's going for the same cause. So I definitely walk that every day. And it's crazy because I remember a couple of years ago when I was in corporate America, you know, hip hop and corporate America don't be matching sometimes, but without even saying something, somebody was like,
that's like a cereal, no milk, peanut butter, no jelly. You know what it is.
Absolutely. But it was like, I think I was just walking to like the break room, man, and somebody was, you know, didn't know me like that. And they mentioned that, you know, they was like, are you a hip hop artist or something? And I'm like, yeah. And they were just like, yeah, you know, I could just tell that, you know, so I could just feel it off you that, you know, that you are like really embedded into, you know, the hip hop and the culture and the things around it. And I found that weird that people thought that, but then I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, man, like, you know, from the clothing to the way I walk, the way I talk, the way that I, you know, the romantic side of it, it's just all hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It's like I just ooze it out or whatever. And it is good to be in that fight. You know what I'm saying? That good fight or whatever. And it makes it well that that I can be able to talk to somebody that shares that same feeling, and you know, have that inch of inspiration. You know what I'm saying? That's greater than me. So I appreciate that, man. Even just looking at your background and like, I mean, literally your background, because I was reading the bio and it's like, you know, you DJ, you share the same stages as some of the people who I adore, like Foreign Exchange and like Tanya Morgan and Red Nubian, you know what I'm saying? All these people, and then to look at the background on the camera, like all these records and stuff, like you say, you're a hoarder of audio. I'm like, man, I wish I could have a room where it's just full of like full of audio.
These ain't well. First of all, this ain't this is a real background. This ain't the Zoom background. But yeah, I mean, this, even though I wish they were like collectibles, so they would be in a little better shape. But like, this is all, you know, this is 25 years now worth of work. And then some of the joints at the top are some of my Pops albums. So it's like my record collection really started with my father's and my mother's albums. And then, you know, I've just over the years had to, you know, get my own work tools, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, I put it up on display because it looks good, but I'm also proud of it because, you know, it's a lot of work, a lot of digging, a lot of love, a lot of care. And each one of these, you know, some more than others, holds some great memories. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, some of those artists that you mentioned, you know, being on the stage with them is dope and it's cool. I could put it on a resume, but like actually physically having the experience of being on a stage and Brand Nubians rocking in front of me and they turn around to me like, all right, we ready for the next track. Like that's I don't know. I mean, I can explain it, but once again, to what you were saying, like how certain folks just understand the energy and the ecosystem of hip hop culture. Mm-hmm. Like, unless you in that space or have certain experiences, like what can I say to give you a full understanding of what that feels like, you know, or to have, you know, Foreign Exchange, anytime they come to Columbus, they're shooting me messages like, yo, we're looking at booking this date, you available? Because they want me to open or whatever. So I've opened for like Foreign Exchange as a group, I want to say 3 or 4 times now. And then, you know, when Zoe comes, I'm opening for Zoe when he's coming with his group. You know, I don't think Fonte has ever come solo. He's either come with Zoe or come with foreign exchange. But, just once, Eric Roberson, and the list goes on, and I'm not name dropping. I'm these are just like to the point of like all these folks who I am truly fans of, to now have, through the many years of the work I've done, being in the culture space, all these different things, like building some friendships, both personal friendships and professional friendships and relationships with a lot of these folks who, I don't know that I'll ever be eloquent enough to kind of express what that feels like. I can just say simply, just simply is dope.
Before we get into the subject at hand, I'm just curious to know, would you have thought that you would be in this position that you're in? Like,
absolutely not. So long story very short, in 1996, when I went to undergrad, I was thinking about being a teacher and thinking about like computer science or whatever. In the back of my mind, like business administration was in there and accounting. Because I told myself, if anything ever happened to me, there's two jobs that the world will always need. It always needs people who work in funeral homes, and it always needs accountants. So I was like, I'm not too keen on, fooling around with the dead bodies. So I'll keep accounting in the back pocket. A lot of things happened. Business administration, the teaching thing kind of didn't fall the way I wanted it to at first, which is ironic considering where I'm at now. And then the computer science thing, So I won't say I was pushed, but I kind of fell into business administration, accounting space. But with that being said, like I'm good at math, but accounting ain't my thing. So the lot of things that happened in the serendipitous twists and turns of my life. And then once again, I think had I not gone to an HBCU, specifically Kentucky State University, I don't think I ever would have been in the space to make the connections, eventually learn how to DJ. I was taught on campus by one of the main DJs on campus. And, the rest, I won't say the rest is history, but, the rest is a different history to tell at another time. But I absolutely did not see myself when I was going off to college, going in this direction. With that being said, like I always had an interest in radio, TV in high school and even going into college. But in high school, I couldn't go to the tech program because that means I wouldn't have enough time to get my honors diploma. So like I went to a school called Columbus Alternative High School here in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. And in order to get an honors diploma from this alternative school, which basically means it was academic magnet school, it means I couldn't go to the trade school or the other schools that had the half-day programs where I could have went to their radio TV program. Right. So I was like, this honors diploma, the sticker on, the honors diploma is more important. So I stuck with that. Kentucky State didn't have a radio TV program at the time that I went there. So even though I had those interests, I never had the opportunity to engage them. So once I met DJ Sakari and we kind of built a friendship, and then he allowed me to come through and practice in his dorm and all those things, that's when I kind of had the uptick in the opportunity to physically take these ideas that I had in my head for years and try to put them out into the ether, into the ears. Some of them sucked. A lot of them sucked, but some of them were pretty good. Yeah. And it led to kind of, long story short, or maybe too late, but it led to me to, where I'm at here. Yeah. But absolutely not did I ever, many years ago see myself being a professional DJ. And even after I was learning and left school, I was working those other jobs. I drove a tow truck. I worked in a kitchen. I worked for an armored car company. I did security and private investigations. I did a whole bunch of different kind of corporate or day jobs or real jobs. And some of them I enjoyed while hating the people I worked with. Some of the jobs I did not enjoy, but liked the people I worked with. But in the end, like I could not, even when my equipment was stolen and all the different trials and tribulations, like DJing, like won't let me go. So like, it's like a crazy relation. I won't say crazy because that's not quite the right word, but it's like one of those relationships, like no matter what me and DJing go through, like it won't let me go and I'm not letting it go. We just, we stuck with each other. So like we've been dating for 25 years now and we'll probably like date for 17 more years and then finally get married. But I know that was a long answer, but absolutely not, man. My life has been an amazing ride. And once again, I owe it to hip hop culture. I owe it to the art and the subculture of DJing. And then all the dope folks who I met along the way who've given me opportunities, inspiration, taught me things, pulled me to the side and like, yo, you want to do this? The next time you want to look at doing this way. et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's been an amazing ride. But if you would have asked me 25, 26 years ago, would I be here talking to Al Pete on this podcast? Who? Doing what? What's a podcast? Absolutely not. I would have never guessed it.
Yeah, man. But listen, you doing some incredible stuff, man. And I love how you documenting it. And it's just the way of hip hop. Like I can just spot and feel that, hip hop when people are like documenting it or portraying it or whatever you want to call it. So I see that you're doing like some great work, man. And just congratulations on all the success, man, that you've done, and the story that you just told is like beautiful, man. I know it's other streets and boulevards in between that story you told. I just want you to be honored. I just want to honor you for that. And I want you, it wasn't no long story for me, man. I love hearing stories like this because, like you said, it's you're touching lives, man. And that's inspiring to me. And it makes me feel better that I know I got a comrade in this hip hop world. You know what I'm saying? So
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So listen, without further ado, my people, we are getting into the song. So the song today is 999. What you want? Oh man. So real quick history. Let me spill through the history real quick. It was a lead single from his debut album, 9 Lives. And it was produced by Rob Lewis, which I don't know who that is. It was a successful single. Came out December 6, 1994, and it charted number 50 on the US Hot 100 and number 3 on US Rap. So, December 6, 94, I was in 10th grade. I remember hearing this on Rap City. Absolutely. This puts me in the light of Onyx. What is it? The Bush Babies, Artifacts, that type of realm.
Onyx, Bush Babies. You could go.
Probably go Lords of Underground too.
Yeah, Lords of Underground, Boot Camp Click.
Ooh, yes.
That whole. A little bit of DITC, a little bit of OC maybe, but yeah, just that classic. I don't want to quite call it gutter, but like that classic 90s hip hop. Classic mid 90s hip hop, because I think the earlier 90s hip hop was a little different, but like that classic, when you just talk about boom bap, that to me, this joint was a classic, just a classic New York City boom bap track. Yeah.
What You Want, man. It was definitely everything that you explained. That's exactly how I feel about it. Of course, when you send me the song and I listened to it a couple of times again, of course, it brought that nostalgic feel. So let's focus on the climate aspect first. Ohio, correct me if I'm wrong. Ohio, that's why I asked you. I was like, is it Central Time or is it Eastern Time? Because I got shout out to Dominic Lawson. I interviewed him and I was sitting in front of the computer. I'm like, all right, 7:00, we doing it. But in my mind, I was like, why he ain't on here? And I know he pretty prompt on things, but he's Central.
Yeah, he one of the Memphis boys. Yeah,
one of the Memphis boys, absolutely. So Ohio, would that be Midwest or would that still be Eastern?
So Ohio is Midwest. I call it the heart of the Midwest, in part because Ohio is shaped like a heart, but also it kind of sits right between, like, if you kind of do the pipeline from east to west, you got Philly, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Indy, and then if you curve up a little bit, you got Chicago, and then just above, well, I won't say just above, like if you go northwest Ohio straight up, that's Detroit. So straight north from Toledo is Detroit. If you go southwest from Columbus, that's Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati can take you out to Louisville, and Louisville out to other parts of Nashville and all those other parts through Tennessee and into the kind of St. Louis. Well, St. Louis is actually on I-70, which runs through Columbus as well. So I say all that to say, like, Columbus is considered the Midwest, but we are in the Eastern time zone. And Indiana has changed over the years. So Indiana used to be kind of like the line where if you went into Indiana, you were crossing the timeline. And then there was pockets in Indiana that were always Central Time. And then there was times where Indiana would link up with Eastern based on daylight savings versus all this stuff is very confusing. and has nothing to do with none of what we're talking about. But
it does, because my thing, I was about to say, you're not too far from like the meccas of where hip hop started.
Yeah, so like if we like it's I want to say between, depending on how you drive, roughly a 6-hour drive will get you to New York City. 6 to 8 hours will get you to New York City from Columbus. We're like, you know, we're seen and treated like a small town, and we're not like big like a Chicago. But like when you really sit down and go through Columbus history, we're really like a spot that has some major like history points in all aspects, whether we talk about the, you know, civil rights movement, where we talk about music and folks who are from Columbus, where we talk about the migration of folks from the South into the North during the Great Migration, like all of those different things. And then you just talk about Western Ohio specifically. You know, we talk about the like funk was the birthplace of funk, Western Ohio. We talk about Dayton, Cincinnati, and even some spots in Cleveland, which is Northeast Ohio. So Ohio as a whole is really like a spot that has a whole lot of gems and treasures and foundational pieces when you talk about pretty much any aspect of American history specifically. But when you talk about music, especially, Ohio is in there. We just don't have like, we're not New York City, we're not Miami, we're not Atlanta, we're not Chicago, and all these other places that kind of have a prominent face inside the music industry. But if you really start to dig below the surface and do some digging and some reading some history, you'll understand how significant Ohio is in music history.
Okay. So this song this song was received well, basically.
So let me say this quick, brief history, like Columbus. Okay. So let me back up. A lot of folks, depending on, this is all depending on where you were at during the time, but a lot of folks forget, like if you talk about when, you know, this joint dropped late 94. So if you want to talk about, we'll just say 93, 94, 95, just those three years alone. And if you really think about like how hip hop was and wasn't being accepted in different spaces. So like if you were in a New York, Chicago, some other places, you were hearing hip hop on the radio. In Columbus, you weren't hearing hip hop on the radio until, generally speaking, like the late 90, 91s, you might hear like Salt and Pepper, or every blue moon, like a heavy D joint, like, and I don't want to call those pop, but those kind of more palatable crossover type of hip hop joints. It wasn't until Doggy Style dropped and we really started to hear like Snoop on the radio, Das Effects on the radio. But before that, you weren't hearing hip hop unless it was a very like a Saturday night specialty show that was being piped in from New York or wherever. Like we didn't even have our own DJs doing those shows for the local radio.
Right.
So that, along with remembering like C. Dolores Tucker, Reverend Calvin Butts, and all those folks who were actively talking about, not just them, but who were active, you know, folks like them and others who were actively talking about how hip hop was going to be the downfall of American civilization. And the same way people go in front of, you know, whether it's the January 6th committee or Senate or House sessions and talk about like Al Qaeda or all these other things that they have hearings on, they had hearings on hip hop, and they were in front of Congress at those green tables talking about how bad hip hop was, whether it was about Ice-T and cop killer songs or, you know, the language, all these other things that they were talking about how bad hip hop was. So there was this war going on kind of in being able to access hip hop based on where you were. So I say all that to say, like in 93, 94, unless you were hearing Das Effects remix, not the original Day One Effects, but that remix that was a little bouncier, so we'll say, or Snoop Dogg, like you weren't really hearing hip hop on the radio here. So we had BT and Rap City and, you know, MTV Raps and all those things on TV. And then sometimes, depending on what package you had, you might get video jukebox or whatever, you know, Ralph McDaniel or whatever. But the access to hip hop was not a commercial thing heavy until late 94 into 95, when, you know, they might play Juicy a bit. There was a lot of Paperboy, a lot of Coolio, a lot of Sir Mix-a-Lot, a lot of I'm trying to think of other joints that were getting radio play. So once again, I don't say that to disparage any of those songs or artists, but hopefully give a adequate view of how Columbus's radio airwaves were sounding in comparison to what it was sounding like in New York on Hot 97 or WBLS or whatever other station, whether it be Pete Rock, whether it be I'm mad because I'm blanking on names right now. Red
That's
Alert
crazy.
or whatever. So, whoever was doing, radio shows in New York, or if they were doing radio shows in Chicago, or as it, picked up and there was radio shows, out west or even down south, so like 9 was not a song that was on the radio.
Right.
It was just too, insert whatever adjective, too black, too street, too rough, too underground, like any and every reason not to put this song on the radio would have been a good answer why this song wasn't on the radio. But like, once again, like anything else, my belief is like, if it's good enough and it speaks to the people will find it. And I think I came across this song for the first time, probably watching MTV Raps or Rap City or something like that.
Yeah. Listen, you schooling me, man, because I, and to give you my perspective, I grew up in Florida, Jacksonville, proudly, but I felt like I was the only person listening to 9 and the likes of, and of course it wasn't on the radio, and of course it wasn't talked about in the schools or in the hallways. But going into this conversation with you, I just felt like, okay, maybe like I wouldn't have been surprised if you would have said, yeah, this is playing on the radio all the time. And not to sound naive or whatever, but to sound naive. It's like, I'm thinking up north. So I'm thinking Columbus, Ohio is up north. You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, okay, we all kind of close to, in the vicinity of these things, even 6 to 8 hours from New York, that's way closer than what we are from it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so you're schooling me on some stuff, brother. Like but I always wonder why, that wasn't the case. And I would assume it's because of the marketing or the market as to why it wasn't played. And you gave a great description on basically why this music wasn't played on the radio. But I always just wondered that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't think that hip hop just fully stayed in New York, you know what I'm saying? Fully stayed in New York. But thank goodness for like the magazines or whatever, because if somebody might have saw it in a Source magazine and been like, yo, let me run the Turtles or Circuit City or whatever store and pick this up. You know what I'm saying? And thank goodness for like Rap City.
And the mom and pop stores for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
we had B&B Records. We had there's too many to name. B&B. I feel bad because like I'm blanking on names now because I'm always horrible with names, but I always try to like remember names and then I don't, and then I feel bad because I'm leaving.
Same here.
But like, so B&B Records, Money Mike's. Then we had Used Kids Records. We had Singing Dog Records. So we had so for those of you who really want to go back, like we used to have, I think it was called record and tape outlet, and then they changed to CD and tape outlet, like when records weren't being sold. Like, so they went from records and tapes to CDs and tapes. But like, so all these different music stores and record stores and all that, like, so whether it was Right On, Word Up, Source, like Vibe, whatever that medium was, magazine wise, that you were like, so and so was coming out, or hearing about so and so dropping an album, or not knowing that somebody was dropping an album till you went to the record store and saw the promo poster up in the store to know, like, all right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And of course, those who remember, it was usually a Tuesday. So knowing those Tuesdays come around, so and so's dropping an album, or you heard whatever single on the radio, on the mix show, and you know that at a rate that an album release, or at least a single release, is coming. And once again, whether you went to Tower Records or Virgin or Media Play or all these other stores that were selling, dedicated to selling music. But yeah, man, it's just when the people want it, they'll find a way to get to it, and they'll find a way to let other folks know like that this good stuff is coming.
Yo, man, that's crazy because I mean, we talking about mid-90s. The only thing, it wasn't no when no text messages, let alone like the internet like that, to be like, okay, well, let me go find this, and the third.
Yeah.
But you're right. The people, when they want it, they're gonna find it, man. And that was definitely a testimony from my end, because like I said, in Jacksonville, Florida, that boom bap rap, the boom bap hip hop, it wasn't popular at all down here. It might have been a small pocket of people that was bumping that stuff, but I felt like I was walking through them hallways, sitting in my house listening to this stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is like the greatest stuff ever. But I mean, listen,
it's hard to be heard over Luke and that bass music is loud, bro. So
you're right.
so it's hard to be heard over that. So
it was all about, what down here was all about Luke, JT Money, Poison Clan, Two Live Crew, then Trick Daddy, and then that's when you roll into like the Trinas and all that other stuff, Rick Ross, and and that was like the prime of hip hop that we was gonna get. So anybody on some boom bap stuff here in Florida, it was like it just wasn't popular. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I wouldn't say people,
but also understanding, like, without attributing this to any specific person or whatever, understanding once again what was going on in the greater sense of hip hop culture, the larger hip hop community. So we talking about like that mid 90s, like the whole East versus West is going on. You got Outkast coming north, winning awards. New York ain't got no love for the South. Like, all of those things is happening. So I'm not going to say that nobody was hating. I'm not saying that, but I would understand, and I would not be surprised without knowing specifically that folks down in whether it be Florida specifically or just folks down in the South is like, yo, we don't need to play nothing from up north. You just rattled off Poison Clan, Trick, Luke, that whole Miami bass subculture.
Atlanta.
You keep moving west. You got Outkast. Keep moving west. You got UGK, Scarface, Ghetto Boys, and a whole bunch of people in between. Like, so at any space, and then if you want to add in Master P and some of those other folks, you like, 8 Ball, MJG, since we brought up Memphis earlier, like at any point, any of them spots be like, yo, we got enough to pack the bag. We don't got to go up north to get nothing. We got everything we need right here. Plus,
that's a great
they
point.
ain't talking about nothing we really interested in talk. Like, what they talking about?
That's a great point, and that's a great ass point, because Tribe Called Quest was like my group for the longest, but when Outkast came, it was like, I mean, I was still bumping Tribe Called Quest, no doubt, but when Outkast came, it was just I could relate to them a lot more. Like, I felt like they were my brothers. So you made a great point. God, you made a great point.
I had to wear my shirt for you, by the way. I don't know if you really paid attention to it, but
I see.
this is for you, brother.
Much appreciated, man. Listen, Outkast forever, man. Outkast forever. But yeah, that's crazy. That's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, I never thought of it like that. You know what I'm saying? And maybe because I was thinking about it from my personal stance or whatever. But when
you're also thinking of it as a professional DJ who's aware of all these other spaces, because like you have to, like, now you mentioned like in the 90s there not being no internet and no text messaging. Like when people had to, like, having a pager was a big deal. And don't let it be a pager, like, not that you leave a message, you could read the message back on your pager. Like, that was a big deal back then. So like being able to kind of have this universal reference point that we have now because of social media and the internet and all that, to where anything that happens anywhere, everybody can know about it. Like, absolutely was not like that before. So part of it too was just like, if you ain't in it, like, you may not even be aware of a lot of stuff that's going on if you ain't in the mix.
Absolutely.
Or don't have cousins or whatever anchor points to have access to that information in those spaces. But then again, once again, like you said, if my homie runs security for whatever group, or my homie got a speaker shop and so-and-so is always bringing their speakers in, or, all these different things that connected us to the culture in whatever way, like, that was what was speaking to us. Or once again, if you had music on the radio, that's what you were exposed to. Now, you might be seeing this and that on Rap City BT, on MTV, on Yo MTV Raps or whatever. But in the end, like, your everyday, whatever is influencing your everyday is going to be kind of what, generally speaking, you interact with, what you evaluate. And R&B was a bit different. So like when it comes to come to R&B, everybody knew about New Edition, everybody knew about Anita Baker, everybody knew about Luther. But once again, that was because in part the market was built to have everybody know about those artists. The hip hop market wasn't built the same way, in part because, and not to go like too deep into it, but like a lot of folks didn't expect hip hop to be something that was around to even think about. Like people got to remember, once again, I tell people all the time, it's like nowadays hip hop is like air. It's everywhere. Like it sells toasters. You hear it on the elevator. You see it here. Like hip hop is everywhere. And it's almost funny. It's like you see hip hop and hear hip hop everywhere other than selling hip hop. Like when's the last time you saw anything hip hop based telling you an album was coming out? Like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se, because we got all these other ways to share the information, but hip hop is everywhere now. Like we talking 30, 35, 40 years roughly. Like people are like, oh, it's a fad. It'll be gone. Like they didn't expect hip hop to live past 88. Then it was 92. And then like, so you got to remember, like, and I say you, like for all of us, like to really remember not just what our memories of like being in hip hop and engaged in the culture, but how the rest of the world saw hip hop. So when we talk about how the market started to develop, and like the market wasn't trying to push certain artists out to the world or reach out into the world to find all these artists, because people are like, what are we going to invest? Why would we invest in this genre that it's going to be gone? We throwing our money away. So the development of hip hop in certain aspects is very different than a lot of other spaces.
Right. You mentioned the air part. To go back to the song, the song was on New York Undercover, so everywhere. Being placed in commercials everywhere. So yeah. That's crazy.
But to that point, and I don't want to divert because I feel like you got a point that you kind of got on the edge of, and you're trying to pull it back. So I don't want to take you sideways.
No. I was adding to the point that you was making as far as like hip hop is everywhere. So when I was thinking of everywhere, I'm thinking about
like all the spaces outside of the radio but also once again, those who were alive or remember watching New York Undercover specifically, like part of why we watched that show is because you were seeing those cameos of actual artists, or you was hearing certain songs that you knew were like real songs that you hearing in the streets. So it wasn't like this is some track that some producer somewhere made for TV, or, like this, it was as real as a TV show is going to be. And once again, because that was on the Fox, I believe that was on Fox.
On Fox, yeah.
It like that's country, that's across the whole country. So, you were having those opportunities to like, if your song was on New York Undercover, that my song is going to be seen or heard, or this artist is going to be seen or heard across the country. Even if this song ain't in those radio markets, it's in this TV market, which is nationwide. That's part of why you talk about Arsenio Hall and having, everybody from Tribe Called Quest. I want to say Wu-Tang, but I might be making that up. I might be confusing them with someone else. But anyway, like all those folks that Arsenio had, like just understanding how hip hop was growing and how hip hop was pushing out of this specific radio market or the album cassette record market and into TV shows, into sync, and having their songs as part of TV shows or as part of commercials and all that. And, so the growth of the culture kind of was different than a lot of other things. But you mentioned something, but back to the song is like part of how and why this song is important to me isn't just because I heard it and liked it, but I saw like having the visual of the song added a whole nother element to it, because while I had been to to New York and New Jersey before the song came out, like everything I understood about New York, generally speaking, was through what I saw on TV. Now, that may not be absolutely accurate because, of course, these are music videos, but like I didn't grow up in a place like New York. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. And Columbus, Ohio in the mid-90s is very different than the Columbus, Ohio now. It was very different than New York then, very different than New York now. Right. So like my engagement and understanding the other things I was hearing in the music. So hearing other songs and the references and talking about this borough or this block or these folks or whatever, like all of those different influences. And then seeing not just this, but videos like Nine as he's moving through the streets, and you're seeing the Rucker, and not specifically the Rucker, but you're seeing like the parks, you're seeing the housing projects and all those things that I didn't see when I went to New York. I saw the subway, I saw the Apollo, other parts of Harlem, but you know, I was, I think at the time, 12, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
So like I wasn't out in the streets.
Right.
Parents weren't letting me run the streets of
Right.
New York at 12.
Right.
So like my engagement, the influences and the images that I kind of collected and built of what New York was like was in part by, you know, engaging with these different kind of culture pieces or songs and videos and all that.
Yeah. Let me tell you a quick story, man. When I went to, might have been, it was 9th grade, but I remember a family reunion trip. We was going to Canada. So we would stop in, when we took trips, we would stop in different spots. And that was one of the main things I loved about like taking these family reunion trips. So we stopped in New York and they was like, we're going to the Statue of Liberty. So the two songs that I was playing in that period of time was Nas, The World Is Yours, and Artifacts, Wrong Side of the Tracks. I remember getting on that boat, and I want to say it was going around a corner to go to the Statue of Liberty or whatever. And all I heard in my head was like Nas playing The World Is Yours. And I think that made that song 10 times bigger for me. Because I just, you know what I'm saying? Because I just like, okay, I'm close to like the elements that I'm seeing in hip hop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like this song was made here. Like every now and then I'll have the opportunity to run into an artist or go into a studio or be in a space where like these things that, like you said, we enamored, I won't say put them on a pedestal, but like we hold them in a certain esteem, like to go to where those places are or to meet those people or to see a place that you saw in a video, to physically stand there and see that place in real life. Like all of those different experiences when you're, you know, we all out of towners to an extent when it comes to New York. So going to New York and the mystique or the whatever it is, like it being real now, like that, man, I can only imagine what it would be like to be on a ferry heading out to the Statue of Liberty, listening to Nas.
It's crazy, man. I mean, just, you know,
that's a video itself. Like
if you would have saw my, and that camera would have been on my face, you would have saw my jaw. My jaw would have been like big as all outdoors, because I just remember listening to the words and hearing the stuff that they were saying, you know what I'm saying? And just seeing the videos and then like thinking like, okay, well, I want to see this, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
I mean, but so same thing, but we gonna flip it.
Okay.
Like I have two sisters who live in Atlanta. So for years, since I first heard Players Ball on a mixtape, I think it was the very first mixtape I ever owned in my life. But like hearing about all of these places and spots that are referenced through hip hop, I mean through Outkast albums for decades, and to be on Campbellton, like, oh shit, I'm on Campbellton. Now I don't know what part, I don't know nothing other than I done heard this street name in these songs and I'm on this street now.
Right.
Or
right.
Like, oh, all right, now we going where? Oh, we going out in the SWATs. Like I don't know nothing else. I just know we going into these areas or seeing this chicken spot or whatever it is, you know, that you heard referenced in these songs. So once again, like it's one thing when you engage music and art from a way of just understanding and accepting, appreciating what the artist gives you. But I think hip hop is special. It's not the only place art wise that does it, but hip hop is special to me because so much of what is referenced in the art, like, is a thing somewhere. Like you can go and touch that historical reference, or you can go and see that historical reference, or you may know the people who are the source of that historical reference. So like having those kind of experiences, once again, it's like I can understand it from a perspective of, you know, the first time I met Melly Mel, and that's the only time I think in my life where I was like starstruck, like to see him open the door and stand right there and like I could feel my face being that. Like if I could be a meme, I would be a meme of some sort, like with Melly Mel standing on the other side of this hotel door when I first met him.
Right.
But so like I understand it, and there's no way to fully express it. Like we said earlier, like you just have to have had that experience to understand, like just like to try to understand what it would be from in a different context or a different kind of metaphor of it. But like you can't put words to some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right about that. You can't put the words into it. Let's roll into the fashion aspect of it. Did Columbus, did they have that same, did they share the same kind of swag, so to say?
So yes and no. So Columbus, once again, being in between so many cities. So if I'm facing you and I'm Columbus, Cleveland is up here, Toledo is up here, Dayton's out there, Cincinnati is down this way. If we reach across the state line, Pittsburgh, and then farther east, Philly, across the state line, Indianapolis, another state over, Chicago, or even if you talk about Northwest Indiana, where Gary is,
Right.
like, so, and then once again through Toledo up into Detroit, like we're kind of like the center of a wheel, and all these spokes reach out to all these other fashion culture influence spots. So in Columbus, we had our cross colors and that whole bright early 90s In Living Color / New York Undercover, that whole thing. We also had the whole all black with the Dickies and the hoodies in the summertime, DOS Effects vibe. Like we got all those influences. We had some of the folks who were, I don't quite call it preppy, because it wasn't like a brand Nubian type of like polo thing, but it was like the Tree Torns and the what's the name of them? I forgot the name of them shoes that fast. K-Swiss with the Doc shorts maybe, and so like we had all these different influences. Then of course we had, for those who really recall, like Nike had these, they weren't Air Force Ones, they were like Force something. They were like a high top basketball shoe. We had the Cortezes. And then once again, unfortunately, a lot of this was still influenced also by the gang culture that was going on in the city. So like this youth group that I was in, that really pulled me into understanding hip hop culture in a different way, because we used hip hop, specifically, we created raps that talked about drug and alcohol prevention, but we also had, dance teams and different things. But it's like our companies or our organizations' colors were red with white. So like there would be sometimes 50s of us teenagers in the group, and we would walk to these different destinations to do these presentations and performances. So imagine what it looked like in the mid 90s to have 50 black kids. Well, we weren't all black, but black, Latin, mixed, 50 POCs in red t-shirts, white shorts. We all, as fresh as we want to be. So we got whatever red shoes we got. You got the red and white and red socks, and the whole early 90s vibe, just walking down the street. Can't nobody tell me we don't look like a gang. Several times we were assumed to be a gang, both by other Bloods, by Crips, and just people. So like I say all that to say, like the culture piece and the fashion piece was like anywhere else. Now we may not have had the same level of culture engagement to where, like, Aniche, Carl Kanai, and some of these other joints that are kind of created as New York streetwear. We didn't have that same level off rip, but we're seeing the videos. So we're seeing what other folks are wearing, and we won't walk around in, even though we were we were wearing overalls, but not like farmer overalls. We had our skid,
right.
And we had the skids, and you had the one strap off, the one strap on. We didn't really get too much into the wear your clothes backwards, like crisscross thing.
Oh, crisscross, yeah.
Yeah, but like all those influences, because we had friends, families, and folks who went to New York, lived in New York, or went to Philly. Like we had all of those influences through our families, but we had the TV influences, we had the radio influences. So, we were doing our thing to be fresh as well. And, we had DJs and other artists and different folks as well. So hip hop culture wasn't alive in the sense of being a worldwide thing like it was in New York, or at least a countrywide thing in New York. But it would be an absolute lie for me to say like hip hop wasn't alive in the city. It absolutely was. So yeah, man.
Gotcha. And I'm sure it was it different when you went to Kentucky State?
Yeah. So I don't want to be stereotypical, but I gotta be kind of. So like little things that I picked up on, but it was cool is like when I went to Kentucky State, once again, I'm in Frankfurt. So Kentucky State's in Frankfurt, which sits not in the center, but like it's not in the center of the state, but it sits between Louisville and Lexington. So Lexington to the east, Louisville to the west.
Right.
So like I won't say all, but so many of the girls from Louisville all wore those Reeboks, I think the 4911s or whatever that like that cool
that classic Reebok.
That classic around the way girl Reebok. So all the girls from Louisville wore those.
Right.
All the girls from Detroit, for example, they all wore like, I call them Buddy Lees, but they were like the dark blue heavy starch denim.
Mm-hmm.
And they would all cuff them. So they wouldn't be like a super high cuff, but it would be a very distinguished cuff. And then they would all have like white Air Force Ones.
Yeah.
And gold jewelry.
Right.
Either they dress like that or they dress, I don't want to say like Aaliyah, but Aaliyah's from Detroit. So they all had that like Aaliyah, Hilfiger. Like it's hard to explain without, of course, sounding stereotypical, but it was very much like that Detroit look. You kind of knew like, oh, she's from Detroit, or oh, she's from Louisville, or or no, she's from Lex or whatever. So I say that to say when I came to Kentucky, even though it's not the deep South, it is the South. It's below the Ohio River. So like the influences were different. So, like Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, Lexington, Louisville, like all of those places had a different influence on a lot of the people that I interacted with than when I was 3 hours north. Right. Now, of course, like I was introduced to the roots by my first roommate who was from Louisville, but he was hip to the roots, before I was. There's some other guys who I met who are from Louisville or Lexington who are listening to whether it be Biggie or Camp Lo or a lot of other artists from New York, like, I won't say like they're from New York, but like they were very hip to, the New York sounds as well. And then, of course, unfortunately, my freshman year is when Pac got shot. So like going to being a freshman, and this is kind of off the topic, but I got to share it.
Yeah, go ahead.
My freshman year, fall of '96, our homecoming concert, Walk With Me. Lost Boys, Outkast, Jay-Z, and there was another R&B artist, but I don't remember who it was. But like, imagine like just even though some artists have passed away, but imagine imagine a concert with Jay-Z, Outkast, and the Lost Boys. And this is so fall of '96. That's our homecoming concert. And in all my years at Kentucky State, that just happens to be the one concert I don't get to see. I'm still.
Oh, you can't hear it in
my voice. No, if you you can see it in my face if you're looking at me. But if you don't hear it in my voice, I'm still Lowry. I'm mad Lowry salty that I didn't get a chance to go to that concert, and I just didn't have the money. I didn't know who to ask for it. And I'm sure if I really asked my parents, I could have kind of pressed for it. But it's like, I just didn't have the money to get a ticket. So that's the only homecoming concert of my college years that I missed. But once again, like that's the influence of folks who are coming to our homecoming conference. So they tried to be, you got Jay-Z and Lost Boys from up north. We got Outkast from Atlanta coming up for a homecoming. Yeah. The group Playa is from Louisville, which, once again, Louisville was only 45 minutes away. So Playa, cheers to you. I saw them several times. So yeah, like to your original question, like the influences and the music that we were hearing, we were playing, represented all those spaces. Like, because once again, you have all of these students from all these places, like everybody want to hear their stuff. So like the Detroit folks, they want to hear that it's not really electronic music, but like they want to hear JIT. They want to hear DJ Assault. Like the folks from Chicago and out west, they want to hear DJ Assault and the other like this ratchet, like I don't even know how to express, like explain it but it's like club music. So are we allowed to cuss on here? We gotta
no, go for it. Yeah,
you got a beat button.
Nah, you go for it. You can say
So
it.
so like all those songs like Ass and Titties, Dick and Balls, Let Me Bang, Beat That Bitch with a Bat. And then you got the joints like all the Luke joints. So like all of those musical influences, like we want to hear because like, yo, I'm from Chicago. I want to hear my shit. Well, I'm from Detroit. I want to hear my shit. And I'm on the floor. We doing our footwork thing. Or I'm from out east and I still want to hear, you know, some hip hop. Or I'm from down south. I want to hear some 8-Ball MJG or some Tila or whatever. So it's like, as you know, before I was a DJ, I was hearing it all. But once I started learning how to DJ, I had to learn it all to know how I could make it through a party, play everybody's music. Because I don't want the Sigmas coming down on me because I ain't play whatever song they want to step to because I ain't hip to it. Or I ain't want, you know, and no diss to the Sigmas. It wasn't just them, but like just understanding how to navigate as a DJ, a college party when I got folks from this part of the country, folks from this part of the country, folks from this part of the country, folks from this part of the country. And then we got all these folks who are old souls. So they want to hear Isley Brothers, Between the Sheets and Biggie in the mix. Or once again, reference Detroit, they want to hear Soulful Moaning by Sean Harris. Like even though that's a Detroit artist, like that's a K-State staple. Anybody in the world who went to Kentucky State University during a certain time frame, they know Soulful Moaning. And like that song, quote unquote, came to campus because it came with the Detroit delegation of students who were coming from Detroit for many years down that I-75 pipeline to Kentucky State. And, you know, Midnight Star, for example, the R&B group, or if you consider them soul, whatever you consider the genre, Midnight Star, like that group basically met on Kentucky State's campus. Wow. So once again, like when you really start to peel back the layers, both in history and influence, you understand that even these quote unquote cow towns or these backwoods or whatever, like they still are part of the ecosystem of music and how music influences come in, whether it be directly from the artist or people who like the artist. And when those people go into other spaces, they take all of those culture pieces with them. And sometimes that culture piece is, this is the kind of music I listen to. We had international students as well. So we were playing. So all of that reggae, like that reggae gold, mid 90s, like that classic reggae, like people still play now, like the Dolly My Baby, the Bam Bam, the Murder She Wrote, all the stuff that people talk about, they getting tired of hearing. Like that's that's a staple. And a lot of that was getting played in Kentucky, but you be like, what does Kentucky know about reggae music or what? There's Rastafarians in Kentucky. Like, it don't matter. We had international students. They were bringing that with them, or they wanted to hear it, or like we had Roots Records in Columbus, Ohio. So like I used to go back on break and get crazy with the reggae 45s, in part because my parents listened to reggae. So the Pan-African or the diaspora community here in Columbus is very wide. So having that influence in that space to learn, like, all right, what's the new hot reggae joints, so I can get these 45s, because ain't nobody else coming back to campus with the 45s but me. I wasn't Krate at the time, but like, so all of those different layers and aspects come together and offer amazing experiences. And that's just K-State. The same story can be told at Tennessee State, can be told at Savannah State, at Fort Valley, at ASU, at Jackson State, at FAM, so I had an older sister that went to FAM. I had an older sister that went to Hampton. I got one of my brothers went to Kentucky State as well. Another one of my brothers went to Wilberforce. Like, insert any HBCU specifically, and it's the same story. It's just different kind of characters based on like where you were. So if you was out east, like Hampton, DMV area, that go-go influence may be, have a heavier prominence than other things. Or if you was up at Bennett or Lincoln or something up further north, that New York East Coast vibe may be a little heavier than it was if you was down at FAM or over at Tuskegee or whatever. But in the end, like, one thing that, and we keep using the word culture, and I use it on purpose, is like it don't matter. And you mentioned it, like, based on how you were seen, as how people interpreted your dress, your walk, etc. Like, just the energy that you exude as far as who you are as a person, like, that's culture. And a lot of us, like we live 10 toes down in our culture. And a lot of people, even whether they rock with it or not, they recognize it and they can feel it. And some folks gravitate towards it because they're there as well. Sometimes people gravitate towards it because they just interested or they whatever. And then some people be like, that's too much, whatever for me. And they push back against it. But in the end, it's like we all bring those things with us wherever we go. And sometimes we got to turn it down. Like you said, in those corporate spaces, we got to turn the volume down a little bit. But when I get in my car after work, that shit gets, we turning that shit up.
All the way
up. To the top.
Yes, literally. Literally. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, let's get to wrapping this thing up. But I want to talk about, we talked about the climate aspect of it. FYI, I'm getting a lot of game on this, man. I mean, and you know, some of it when you're speaking it, I'm like, yeah, you're right. But some of it just is very enlightening. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate these words, this wisdom action that's going on right now. I truly appreciate this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's touch on the producer side. So, like I said, we did the climate side, the geographic side, all this other stuff, the New York strolls, all that stuff. But the song, let's talk about the production of it. Let's talk about what you like about the song, whether it be the lyrics, the production. I mentioned production because you do dabble in, well, not dabble, but you do produce. So wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I stick my tongue in my toe in the pool from time to time. You know, I might pull out a little MPC work here, a little MPD work. But so I'm gonna answer your question, and I'm gonna fold in other things that you didn't ask specifically, but I know kind of for listeners to know. So like part of why this song is even the topic of today's conversation is the sound. So like it has that intro, deep, heavy bass line. And then the drums come in, classic boom bap drums, but it still got the string. So it still got that orchestral string vibe to it, that lighter, airy vibe of the strings to it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I know you didn't get to it, but like it has a whole bunch of different samples. So I'm over here. So it's got Dock of the Bay by the Staple Singer is one sample. Spinning Wheel by Dr. Lonnie Smith is another sample. And for those of you who are Tribe Called Quest fans, you may recognize that sample. That Spinning Wheel joint is a Tribe sample as well.
Yep.
Catch a Groove by Juice and Best of My Love by The Emotions. So all of those songs at some point are sample sources for this joint. But what I loved about this song, once again, was the heavy bass line, the heavy drums, and it was a nice full production piece. And then you add the gravelly tone of Nine's voice to it. And to me, it was just like so super hip hop / New York. But what made this song so important in ways that other songs at the same time weren't important, or other songs that may be more popular or even quote unquote better songs.
Yeah.
This joint dropped around the time I got my driver's license. So being able to hop in my dad's full-size van, which is what I took my driver's test in. Yeah. That's why I got the skills that I got. Anyway. So like being able to hop in the full-size GMC with the big sliding door on the side, like to hop in the van, have my license, and put this tape in and just have the van blaring when I'm on my own driving. Like this was one of my like staples. And that's part of why I still have it to this day. Like I think I have maybe give or take 20 cassettes left. And over all the years, I don't know what's happened to them. A lot got thrown away or whatever. But like this is a cassette that I might have them put in my coffin when I'm gone. This might have to go with me. But so like this, I won't even say it was replaced, but like when the purple tape came out, like this had to slide over. But until the purple tape came out, I know for sure that I never left the house without my little tape case. I had like
the tape case,
the leather case with the strap with the 10. You could get 10 cases in there. I didn't leave the house without my tape case that had this in there. And this is a single too, so you might have been able to squeeze a couple of extras because they ain't a full size cassette case.
Yeah.
But so like part of why this song is special to me, aside from the quality and the dopeness of the song in the video, which we didn't really talk about, but having, seeing him go through the streets in his Jeep with the doors off. And if you really pay attention, like he got 4 different girls driving the same Jeep. So now you're asking questions like, well, whose Jeep is it? Is it his Jeep?
Right.
Like, is it like, did they not think we was going to notice that he got 4 different chicks driving him through this whole song in the same Jeep? Or like, so, you know, all those, once again, like all of those influences where like you couldn't afford a Jeep in the 90s, but you could afford an Amigo and take the what they call it, the whatever the top was, that canvas or
the little canvas joint on the top, the roof,
non-hard top. Yeah, you could drop the roof on that, or if you had a Geo Tracker, I think it was, you could take the like. So once again, like tying all those culture pieces, influence pieces. But what I loved about this song, classic boom bap drums, the deep heavy bass line, and it was one of the songs you could just turn it up and put it on repeat. I got the album version on one side, and I think the instrumental was on here as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I was about to ask, was that a maxi single or just a regular single?
It's not quite a maxi single, but it had the Whatchu Want on one side, and it had his other song called Red Rum or Murder in Reverse. Was the second joint on this. But yeah, 1994, Profile Records. 740 Broadway, New York. 10003 is the zip code.
Listen,
yeah, man.
back when I was rapping, when I first started rapping, and of course there was like you got to take demos and stuff like that, or you got to send demos. Boy, seeing that address on them cassette tapes made your boy happy.
Yeah, because I know where this next package is going.
Absolutely, man. That's cool that you got the cassette tape, man. Like you have a real like. It's still top notch. It look good. The cover and everything.
I've been taking care of it. You know, I don't remember the last time I had a tape player, so I know I haven't played it. But the paper case itself the sleeve is in pretty good condition. But yeah, man, and we talked about this before we hit record, or maybe you already hit record. I don't know. But I also got, you know, I saw you talk about it before, and I know it's kind of hard to see because of the glare. But I got that Camp Low joint.
That Camp Low, man. That Camp Low.
And this Camp Low joint is dope because it had Lucchini on one side and it had Swing on the other side. So like those are two real nice Camp Low selections. And you know, shouts out to them.
I thought it would have had Cool How on the other side.
Not this one. Yeah, it's got Lucchini and Swing on this one. I think Cooley High was a CD release. But do you remember what the actual album was called?
The original before it was called Uptown?
Yeah.
No.
So when we saw the album come out, it was like Uptown Saturday Night or Uptown whatever.
Yeah.
Originally, the album was called A Piece of the Action. So if you look at the single, it says from the album A Piece of the Action. Now I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know how, whatever led to that change.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like once again, this is one part of hip hop specifically that I miss with all of this digital space.
Wow.
It's like how much information you were able to get just off a CD or a 12-inch single sleeve, let alone an album that had all this information on it. So, you know, everything from production credits, writing credits, like you were saying, knowing where to send these demos because the record labels had their addresses on it. And,
I'm sure a lot of people knew about 9 way better back in the day versus now. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you got a case right there. You got all the information is like on the sleeve, you know?
And what I didn't realize until just now, and both of these artists, both Camplo and 9 were on Profile Records, at least at this time of these releases. So, you know,
wow,
this was
the separation
94. And this was 90. This is actually dated 96, but I like you mentioned it that the album didn't come out until I believe 97. So at some point when they were releasing the single in 96, they did whatever A&R development to change the album title.
Wow, I would like to know that history of that, especially. And then I would like to know about Profile Records. Now, I don't know. And correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Profile Records might have been like the mini Loud Records.
So I don't want to make that comparison because I don't have a full understanding of the history.
Yeah,
if we talk about like Profile, specific, like Special Ed was on Profile.
Okay.
I'm trying to think through my memory bank what album I've seen with that Profile label off the top of my head. But like Profile wasn't no mom and pop label. Like they had some heavy hitters throughout the year.
For sure.
But yeah, so yeah, just
that's crazy. I mean, you got 2 tapes of Camp Low and it was on the same label. How about that? Yeah.
You know, man, I feel like we could talk for another 3 hours, but I know that and I said this before, like as much as I want to just talk with Al, because like we chat in different spaces often, like, you know, so hearing his story and hearing his perspective is something I was looking forward to in doing this episode.
Yeah, man.
But like I understand as a creative, like now he's got to sit and chop all this up or decide how he's gonna edit it or whatever.
But that's like, beautiful, man.
You say that now, and then when you edit it, you're like, I need a break. Like, why did I let him talk for hours?
Trust me, I love it, man. Like you know, I'm thoroughly enjoying hearing like everybody's stories, when it comes to the music or whatever. Because music is such a big thing for me. Like that's like number 1 on my list. Like between music and how information is like delivered. I'm a big communications guy. Like I just love how like media, all that stuff. So it's those 2 things. So music, I just love to hear other people's stories, man, and perspectives. So trust me, I would not have a problem editing this stuff. Now the video part, different story, because I got a good vision about how I want the videos look. I haven't even touched the videos, but trust me, brother, we good, man. And cool. Listen, when we get into that other space again, I'm sure we're gonna have, you know, the conversation is gonna be longer and longer. Yeah. And I'm enjoying every last minute of it, man.
My pleasure, my pleasure, and thank you again for the invite, man. I'm
yes, sir. All right, well, listen, we wrapping this thing up. Shouts out to you, Krate, man. Thank you so much for being on this show, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm sitting here thinking like I'm gonna have to, like, you know, when we disconnect, I'm gonna have to be like, man, I gotta find some time to talk to this brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, when the next time gonna be? Because I want to soak all this stuff in, just about the history that you was telling me about. I mean, the Ohio history, Kentucky State. Like you dropped that Midnight Star. I'm like, darn, like I just feel like I gotta go and kind of sit with it and then come back, and it'll be another bucket of things that we got to talk about.
Well, we can put it in the air. For those of you who don't know, Ohio tends to get quite cold in the wintertime. There's no problem. I will go to Florida. I can find a time to come down to Florida for a weekend. We just chop it up, and we might do, you know, we can DJ and do some live streams or kill a club, but, you know, it's whatever. But I'll put that in the air. I'll put that in the air.
That sounds great, brother, because Florida won't get cold until we might have 1 month where it's just like cold, and cold is like 50 degrees.
Yeah, so it's relative. Like, y'all's cold ain't, yeah. Y'all got lowercase c on the cold. We got a capital. We got C.
Absolutely.
And you can have a whole nother appreciation of the cold because you're Alpha, and we didn't even talk Greek life because I'm not a Greek, but I have, like, both my brothers are Alphas, and all these other folks in my life are Greek. So, like, just the cold reference, like
ice cold.
I'm gonna let you run with that. However, these
I almost said something. Hold on, I almost said something when you mentioned Das Effect, Mike Checker. I was like, you know, that's our joint. So
I'm hip.
Yes, sir. So, but yeah, we'll work on that, man. We'll set something up. It'll be good to connect on that tip, man. And
for sure.
Yeah, we'll get
it'll happen when it's supposed to. You know, I'm one of those folks who believe everything happens when it's supposed to.
Absolutely. So. I likewise. So, but it's in the air though, so it's cool. It's in the air. Well, let the people know where they can find you at, brother. Tell them all the good stuff that you got going on and all that.
Cool. 1 2 1 2. What's good? Mic check. I am DJ Krate Digga of the Mighty Sound Champion crew. You can catch me 24/7, 365 on KrateDigga.com. That's KrateDigga.com. I have music. I got visuals, tutorials, documentaries, and more on the website. You can also catch me on social media. Like I said, I know I don't look my age. I know I don't look it. I know. But I am 44 years old. And if you need proof and you want to see the bald spot on top that I call my sunroof, go to Instagram. That's at Krate Digga on Instagram. if you want to hear this, well, I don't really say smart things on Twitter. I'm very sarcastic, and no, I just have fun on Twitter. I try not to be a troll, but I like to engage people. But I'm on Twitter at Krate Digga as well. If you're hip to Fanbase, Isaac Hayes III has a social media platform called Fanbase. I'm on Fanbase at Krate Digga there. If you're on Twitch, twitch.tv/DJ Krate Digga, DJ Krate Digga on Twitch. On Facebook, I don't remember, but just type in Krate Digga, you'll find me. I feel like there's more, but I just tell everybody, go to cratedigga.com. That is the center of the Krate Digga universe. Anything and everything that you need to know about me, my brand, my career, my life, all the things are there. So hit cratedigga.com. Tell them Large Marge sent you. Appreciate it.
I love that Pee Wee Herman reference, sir.
Well, I'm old school, man. I'm old school.
Hey, well, I ain't gonna say we old, but yeah, that reference, I love it, boy, because I used to watch that movie like crazy. You gotta speak to certain, you gotta say certain things so the folks who know, like if you know, you know. Everybody. If you know, you know. What? Nah, but if you know, you know. That's how it's always been. Absolutely. But listen, man, we wrapping this thing up. Don't hang up yet, Krate. I have to tell you, don't hang up because we're gonna talk afterwards. But listen, my people, Groove Suite Podcast, C4 Challenge, that's C as in Charles, 4challenge.com. Go on there, check out some stuff. And oh yes, I meant to mention, please go back and look at, was it season 2 that you was on, Krate?
Yes, sir. So I was on season 2. If you go to my website, cratedigga.com/visuals, all of those from season 2, they're up on my website, or you go to create. I think it's on the creators page too. I don't want to say it's not, but I don't know for sure that it is. They might have to make space for this new challenge. But if all else fails, go to cratedigga.com/visuals. You'll see all of my challenge pieces from season 2. And yeah, man, just stay hip to the collective as a whole, man. The collective is dope. One thing I love about the collective is even though some of the folks, I won't even say some, a lot of the folks, quite honestly, their podcasts aren't in my wheelhouse of interest, but it's dope content. It's professional. It sounds great. They work hard. So even if I don't personally like the content or the subject matter, they are putting out dope shit. Check out all of my folks with the inside and outside of the challenge. The challenge is just one thing. Like all of these folks have podcasts and or multiple podcasts. Some of them live stream. Some of them do in real live events. Like there's so much going on with the collective. Like you just got to tap in with the collective. And it's like anything else. You're going to find your tribe. You'll find what speaks to you. You'll realize like this ain't really for me, but it's not because it's not good. It's just not for me, but it's still dope. So I'm going to put my
still dope. Yep.
Aware of this or into this. Yeah. Like it's something for it, man. It's like Walmart. We like the Walmart of Black creativity. Like, between them and Costco. I don't know if we call it Bosco. I don't know what to call it, but like just Black creativity. Like we got something for everybody. Absolutely. Maybe call it Bamazon. We're going to call it Black Amazon. I don't know.
Yo, I like Costco. I fuck with Costco.
Let's do that. Whatever. I don't have a membership to. I done got rid of my Prime membership because everything was always coming late. I don't have so we call it whatever we want.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Walmart it is. So, all right, peoples. Y'all have a great one. I see y'all on the next go round. Be good to yourselves and be good to others. All right. Peace. The Groove Suite Podcast has been brought to you by Mr. Penis's Neighborhood and the Groove Suite. Make sure you stay in tune with us on our socials, on Instagram and Twitter at The Groove Suite, and on Facebook, The Groove Suite Podcast. If you want to email us some music, tell us that you like us, email us at groovesweetjacks@gmail.com. New things, new vibe, new soul, all that. Thank you to everybody who supports us, rock with us, and vibe with us. The Groove Suite.